Everyone. My name's John Raisey. I'm acting inspector in Avon Somerset Police, covering Baines. Obviously, we're here tonight to talk and provide some support and advice to members of the community with how to cope with the grief that many young people in the community are working through right now, as well as the wider community as well. I just want to start by giving a bit of housekeeping for those that are present in person. We aren't expecting any fire alarms tonight. If an alarm goes off, then it is something we should treat as a serious alarm. The fire exits are through that way and right through the building and out onto the street. The place for everyone to congregate should an alarm go off or we need to evacuate because of a fire, we'll be going out the doors and turn right into the bus stop on the street. We've taken everyone's details that are here tonight so that we can check you off at the bus stop when we get there. Also, if anyone should need the toilets, just through that door on the left is men's and ladies' toilets, and further on to the right, there's a disabled toilet. I'll also say hello to everyone that's joining us online as well, and generally to everyone that's made it here in person. Thank you very much for coming out tonight. As I say, we're here tonight to provide advice and support to the community as we come to terms with the loss of Charlie Bates, who died on Sunday, 31st of July. We hope that tonight we can explain some of the support available to the community, to both young and old, and for advice for parents and carers, how they can support people dealing with bereavement or fearing for the safety of those young people that they're caring for. Unfortunately, we're not here to discuss the incident or the investigation. As I say, tonight is purely about support and advice to the community. We will provide that not only through the talks themselves, but also when we have breaks. We've got a number of people here who are here in a supportive role to assist the people coping with bereavement. Just to warn you, there may be some content throughout the evening which may be difficult to listen to. We would try and give a warning in advance of things we think might act as a trigger. And if anyone needs a bit of time out or just a break, then please feel free to leave the auditorium or switch off the web feed. So the talkers this evening, the first talkers will be Dr. Katie Birch, who's an educational psychologist, and Dr. Julia Hawkins from Hope House Surgery. They'll be talking about support available through Youth Connect Southwest's website, and they've got a specific page called Supporting Radstock, and also the support available through a GP in dealing with bereavement. That will take us then up to approximately 7:20 when there'll be a break. And at 7:40 we got Leanne Reynolds, who's a community voice in Bristol. She's got lived experience of having lost two of her students through knife violence or gang violence. And she's here to talk a little bit about a group called fearless.org, which is a support network for young people where they can talk anonymously, and things that parents can do or be aware of if they're worried that their children are involved in violence. So that's the itinerary for this evening. So can I invite Katie and Julia to come up, please? Thank you.
Katie Birch, and I'm an educational psychologist from Bath and North East Somerset Council. So I work across the local authority, and the service works with children and young people from 0 to 25, so a large age range. So today I'm going to talk about grief and bereavement kind of across that age group, and just talking about what you can perhaps expect to see of how children and young people might react to this situation, and how we can support them as parents, carers, or as adults just supporting children and young people in different roles. So a quick safety message, just probably echoing what's already been said. This is a parent and carer professional kind of presentation. I've written it in with that in mind. It's not intended for students and for young people. The aim is to give as much information as possible so that you can support family and friends during this time, whilst also respecting the family's privacy during their grieving period. So, like has already been said, I'm not going to be going into details about the incident. I'm going to be talking about grief and bereavement in general. If you need to take a break, take one. I won't be offended if you walk out. And equally, if you then feel better and want to come back in, do that. And the same if you're online, make sure there's somebody that you can check in with at home as well. And if you need to talk to anyone, we're going to be talking about the support that's available today. So hopefully by the end of the evening, you'll know where to go for that support. So just a quick session overview. I'm going to talk about typical grief reactions across the ages. I know this kind of incident has affected perhaps the secondary, post-16 age range, but I'm going to just touch on reactions of primary school and younger children as well, because I'm sure that families will have other children who they're supporting during this time as well. We're going to talk about how to support children and young people, when to seek support if you're concerned about what you're seeing, and the support services, and then briefly just about looking after yourself as well. So I've included this slide because what children and young people understand in terms of death and their concept of death can be quite different to how adults understand death, and it does depend on their age range. So I thought it was just important to kind of highlight what they might understand. So for young children up to around 5 years of age, they will understand death more like a separation. So they will expect the person who has died to come back, and there might be a lot of questions about when that is going to be, and kind of why they haven't come back yet, and that would be typical for that age range. They'll also take explanations very literally. So when we're talking about death, if we think about it, we use a lot of language that doesn't use the word death or died. We use loss. We might say people have fallen asleep, or they're not going to wake up, or they've gone up to the stars. For children of that age, they will take that literally, and then that's actually really confusing. So we do recommend thinking about the language that you're using with the young children, so that there isn't that confusion, and so that there also doesn't bring fear. Sometimes you can then get anxiety in young children about not wanting to go to sleep because they might not wake up, or not wanting their carer to go to sleep, etc. With your primary age children, obviously this is quite a large age range. They are beginning to understand death, and they're understanding that it's forever. They're aware of their own mortality and others. They can be quite kind of curious about death. So again, you can get lots of questions from this age group as well. And it's important to just kind of try and answer those questions for them. And you might get repeated questions as well whilst they're kind of trying to process what's going on. Secondary age children and beyond, so moving into post-16 and adulthood, their understanding is much more similar to how adults might understand it. So they'll understand that death is forever. They'll have an understanding of what it means for them and for others around them, and they'll have an understanding of what that means now, but also the impact later on as well. For your secondary age group, like they're also within that kind of period of their life where they're kind of questioning the meaning of life, what's the point of things, and you can quite often get a lot of questions about that, like, oh, well, what's the point of us being here? And again, that would be kind of a typical reaction for that age range. So what it looks like. So these bullet points are all normal grief reactions, and you can see that there are a lot of them, and that they are varied as well. And there's no like right or wrong grief reaction. Some people will experience some of these for maybe a day, a week. Some people might experience a lot of these, and some people might experience them for a longer period of time as well. And that would all be normal. It will depend on their age, their family situation, what else is going on in their lives, and of course their relationship to the person who has died, and their involvement in the circumstances around that. So I think probably the one at the top, the shock and disbelief, is often quite an early kind of symptom that you'll find. So you might have had children and young people kind of making comments about how they can't believe it. You might have had a very shut down kind of young person. They might have appeared very forgetful or confused, and that would be something that, yeah, we would expect. There's perhaps more obvious things on there: longing for the person, feeling sad that they've gone. They can feel anxious about the future and about what the things that have happened, and then of course find it difficult to concentrate and carry on with normal sleep patterns, eating patterns, and self-esteem and confidence can be affected as well. For the young children, for those under fives, sometimes what you'll find is that they'll appear absolutely fine and then be really sad and then be absolutely fine again. So you'll get kind of that up and down. And with the younger ones as well, you can sometimes see a regression in their behavior. And potentially some more anxiety. So you might see them having nightmares or separation anxiety. And again, those would be kind of typical responses that we'd expect. This slide just covers like a few, I suppose, other situations that are happening for young people that can affect how they respond to this situation. So for children and young people who are already experiencing a stressful situation, which could be another bereavement, it could be moving house or moving schools, then where they may have been coping with that okay, they may start to find that more difficult. And equally, if they've kind of got that coming up, then that can all impact as well. So you might have thought that they might have been fine with whatever was coming up, and then suddenly they're not, and that may all be linked. Just also remembering that children and young people don't have to have been directly impacted by the death to be showing kind of reactions. You know, they'll pick up on a lot that's going on around them. So you might have a child or young person who is upset, and you might think, well, they didn't know them, they weren't involved, but actually, you know, that's kind of typical. Those things do pick up on things. You might also see things might be fine right now, and you might see reactions later on, perhaps after the summer holidays. I think I just put there just some immediate events to kind of think about. So the funeral may be a triggering event. We've of course got exam results day, and then starting either returning to school or even going to a new setting. So those are kind of key times to think about how are you going to support your young people. And I mean, you're not alone in that either. The schools and the colleges, I know, are already thinking about that. And then I just put here just around the situation as it is. Like over the last week or so, I've heard a few kind of common concerns that are coming out. So comments like, I don't want this to happen to my child, or I don't want them to even like have this in their head that this has actually happened as an event, because it's so awful and it's so frightening. And also comments like, they feel like they could have stopped it, could have done something different. Those kind of common concerns that are coming out. With these, our advice would be to offer reassurance, like, these situations are rare, the area is safe, and we can do things to keep ourselves safe. So feel confident about going about your normal, what you would normally do. Do answer their questions and clarify the facts. So often there's a lot of rumor, just some misinformation around that can actually heighten anxiety about things. So answer their questions, stick to the facts, and if you don't know, be confident to say, well, I don't know that at the moment, and that's fine to say that. Allow them to talk about their feelings, and if they are expressing feelings of guilt that they feel like they should have done something different, listen to that. Explain to them that is a normal reaction. Like, we often feel like we should have done something different, or would have liked to have done something different, and just help them understand that they're not responsible for that, and that might be a conversation that you have to have a number of times. So helping children and young people to cope in general. Children and young people need the information and the understanding. So they need to know that, you are aware of what has gone on. They need to be able to explore, express, and normalize their feelings. So do give them opportunities to talk about their feelings. They may want as well to have opportunities to talk about their memories of the person, and to participate in the rituals that we have around death, so any of the memorials. And what we would say is that if they want to do that, to try and facilitate that. If they don't want to do that, then again, I would say respect that decision. And of course, we want to be teaching them coping strategies, so how to manage that, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. So our advice in these situations is don't simply wait for children and young people to bring it up. Acknowledge that this has happened. The community is very aware, it is out there, we can't hide it. So acknowledge the death, be open and honest about it. As I've already said, don't be afraid to say, I don't know. Like, the most important thing is that you are there and that you are somebody who they can ask these questions to. Just accept their feelings and be there for them. You might find that their feelings are quite different, or their worries are quite different to what you might have expected them to be. So it's really important to listen and see what they are saying. I've already covered using direct and concrete language. And just remember as well, it's really unlikely that anything you say is going to make it worse. So specifically for parents and carers, like, many students will want to speak to their parents about what's happened. Like I've already said, let them know that and that you're there to listen to them. So they might not want to talk about it now, but they might want to talk about it later, in weeks to come. So let them know that you're there. Allow them to ask questions. Always include in the discussion positive ways of coping. So try to avoid getting stuck into a cycle of it's awful, it's hopeless, it's a terrible event. Try and empathize, but then try and move things on to thinking about, well, how can we make things better? What would make you feel better right now? And then just kind of key messages in these talks as well is just telling children and young people that if you are feeling down, or that a friend is feeling down, encourage them to talk to an adult. And that is the thing to do. Come and ask for help if you need it. The contact. So if your child is linked to a mental health professional, do inform them of the death. I would say that the same for if they're involved with any kind of professional. Let them know that this incident has happened if they don't know already, including if they're going to just some kind of youth event or play scheme, whatever it might be, depending on their age. Just let them know that this has happened. so that they can kind of keep an eye on things. And then if they do talk about anything, or if anything happens during the session, then at least the people know. Do acknowledge like what they're feeling. So it's best to kind of acknowledge it in whatever words that they use. So if they're saying, I'm feeling really worried, I'm feeling really scared, then say, oh, yes, I can see that you're worried, or I can see that you're scared. And then try and help them think about, well, what can they do to feel a bit better right now? Make sure that they feel safe. So physical proximity is really useful for that. That might, of course, depend on their age, whether they want to accept a hug or a pat on the back. Just kind of the typical things that you would do really to make your children feel safe. It's just an important time to do that. And the last one is like maintain routines as much as possible. So obviously we're in the summer holidays now. Your routines will be different and probably a lot more flexible than they would be if this was term time. So I think that is a tricky one. But I think if you can maintain some kind of routine to your day, so it might be a bedtime, it might be a meal time, so that tends to help children and young people feel safe and feel that things, can get back to normal and are going to get back to normal for them. And then to try and discuss like specific coping strategies with them. So what can be quite helpful in this situation, rather than telling them to do something, you can say, oh, well, I find, when I was feeling upset, don't go into masses of detail about what you were upset about, but I found talking to whoever was really helpful, or I find exercise really helpful, or something like that. Or you could say, oh, I heard somebody talking about this that was really relaxing. So sometimes like talking about it indirectly rather than directing, particularly for the older age group, can be more helpful. And just like that last one with helping your child to continue to engage in things they enjoy doing, that can be something that young people, like adults as well, can just feel almost reluctant to do and almost guilty that they are still having fun and enjoying themselves. And it's really important to reassure them that it's still okay. It's still okay to go to these things that you were planning on doing. It's still okay to go and have fun and enjoy yourself. Like it's important as well in terms of helping you to feel better. I've just included here a slide about just some things to look out for if kind of where we're thinking, or maybe there needs to be a bit more support here. I would stress that like a lot of these things are also part of the normal grief response. So if there's something on here that your child or young person has said or done, I'm not saying, drop everything, call somebody. Keep an eye on things. If you feel that it's not typical, that it's lasting a long time, that it's happening a lot or quite extreme, then we can think about seeking help. But yeah, kind of don't panic with these things, because I'm sure some children and young people will have already said some of these things, particularly that one there about what's the point? I don't want to wake up, and things like that. They are common things that young people say. But things like expressing suicidal thoughts, or particularly stating that they might have a plan, is something to be alert to. If they're feeling really hopeless and they don't feel like they can kind of see a way out of things, if that's kind of lasting a long time, again, that's something to be thinking about. If they're becoming more isolated from family and friends, being tearful for no reason, or unable to cope with kind of everyday events. And again, like increased risk taking, like particularly for this age group, it is, something that is probably a natural part of their development as well. But just thinking about that and what they're doing, where they are, all the kind of typical things that you would do as parents, really. I do think, like, with this timeline, you've got the summer holidays now, and then you've got the event of the results day, you've got the event of starting school and college. Like that whole period, could be a typical grief period. So you've actually got, the timeline for kind of triggering your grief again is, fairly long over the next few weeks. So what I would say is, unless you're kind of experiencing, very extreme versions of that, I would expect there to be some grief carrying on through the summer holiday, and for those events to perhaps trigger for some children, to go almost backwards in their grief. What I would hope is probably by that, after the end of that first term, that things are kind of starting to settle down. They've settled into where, back into school or into college, and that things are starting to get back to normal by then. So I think that's kind of the time period that I'm thinking. So if you are concerned as a parent, if those things are raising alarm bells, or as a professional, during this period, during the summer holidays, contact your GP, and Julia's going to talk about that some more, so I won't cover that. Obviously, if it's a really serious incident, the emergency department. When term starts again, speaking to school or college as well. So again, like, you're not alone in supporting this, and do reach out. I've just put, here's just some kind of more national support services that are available. So actually all of them have an online presence. They also have telephone lines, and some of them have online chats as well. And so Grief Encounter supports children and young people through bereavement. And we've got like one further down, the Hopeline UK. So that's supporting up to actually the age of 35, anyone who's experiencing suicidal thoughts or who is supporting somebody who's having those thoughts. So all of them are available, and like, they are purposely designed to be supporting in these situations. So don't feel afraid to like reach out to them and ask for their help. So just lastly, before I hand over to Julia, I just put a little slide about looking after yourself. Like, to look after somebody else, you've also got to look after yourself. And like this, this situation will have affected all of us in different ways. So do be easy on yourself. It is not easy to be a parent at the best of times, and this is definitely an example of where it isn't easy. Do take time out if you need it. If you don't feel that you can talk to your child at a particular time because you're too upset, you're too stressed about something else, then take the time out so that you can talk to them when you have got a clear head and when you can be calm and reassuring. If you need to talk to somebody, I've just highlighted some support services there, but there are others as well. And don't be afraid to ask for help, because that is what these services are here for. That is where I'm going to leave it today. So I hope that's been helpful, and I will pass over to Julia.
Thanks so much, Vicky. I just wanted to say that I've used some of the websites in Vicky's presentation already this week, and they're really, really good resources, and the websites are really, really clear. So would encourage anyone just to take a look at those as well. So my name's Dr. Julia Hawkins. I'm one of the GPs at Hope House in Radstock. I'm just going to talk a little bit about what to expect when you do reach out to us at GP services. And although I'm from Hope House in Radstock, I think I talk on behalf of all GPs and GP practices in the local area. The first point I really, really want to get across to everyone in the community is that GP practices are open. And we really, really want to hear from you if you, young person or anyone that you know in the community, is really struggling with recent events. We really don't want you sitting at home and struggling with this on your own. There's lots of help and support out there, so please do reach out to us. Just to reiterate again what's been said, if your young person is feeling really unsafe in the community and you're really worried for their safety, then please do contact your GP urgently. If that is really, if you're really, really worried that something is going to happen to them urgently and we're not open, then please go to A&E. It is busy, but it is at least a place of safety to get your young person to. When you give us a call, it is really, really helpful to tell our receptionists a little bit about why you're calling. And that's especially important if you're concerned about the safety of your young person or someone that you know. When we get those types of calls, we can make things happen very quickly, but we can't if we don't know that that's the problem, and we don't want those calls sitting there for hours during the day. So please let us know if that's your concern, and we can get you the help and support that you need quickly and get that young person seen quickly at the practice. Equally, if your safety is not a concern, but they need some help and support, you don't have to tell our receptionists in great detail what the problem is. You can keep it vague. Something like, my son or daughter's really been affected by what's happened recently in Radstock. We will know exactly what you mean, and we will be able to get someone in contact with you. Lots of our staff at GP practices live and work within the local community and have also been affected by local events. So you don't have to tell us everything, but just give them a heads up of what the problem is. When you speak to a GP on the telephone or speak to us in person, we're not specialists. We're generalists as GPs. We're not trained counsellors, but we're very good at listening, and we're very good at knowing what help and support is out there in the community and how to get it for you. The other people that I just want to draw the community's attention to is that all GP practices in the local area have access to social prescribers and care coordinators. And these people really, really know what help and support is out there in the community that we as GPs might not know about. So if traditional counselling just isn't going to work for your young person, but say they have an interest in sport or in art or music, and that's how that they can really express their emotion, then we can put you in touch with local agencies, local charities and support. So please get in touch. Sometimes grief further down the line can lead to changes in mood or changes in anxiety, or it can make those existing problems worse. And again, please let us know if that's happening and you're worried about someone's mental health, and we can again talk through those issues and direct you to or refer you to appropriate agencies. I just really, really briefly want to touch on medication, just because it's something that's come up a few times over the past few weeks. Grief, unfortunately, is a difficult process, and it's something that does have to be worked through. And there's no tablet that I can give you that will help take away that pain. And actually, giving you something might make things worse further down the line. We've also had a few inquiries about whether to increase antidepressants doses from parents or from older people recently. Again, acute grief reactions don't respond to medication in general, but if those thoughts are going through your head and you want to know more, then please give us a call, and your usual GP will be more than happy to discuss those things with you. So finally, just to end, I just again want to really reiterate, we are open as GPs. So please do get in contact with us if you need us. And I think we're going to have a short break, and then we'll continue after 20 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you to Katie and Julia for your inputs there. So hopefully what we've learned in the last half hour is, the type of grief that people may be going through and how it may manifest for different ages. Hopefully we picked up on the phone numbers and websites that are available for some support. I'll ask if we can put that slide up on the break if anyone wants to take down any phone numbers or anything like that. And also the role of the GP surgery and the support that they can give. So time now is spot on. So 19:20. We'll have a break now, and we'll come back at 20 to 8. And the talk there, say, will be on lived experience of knife crime and the impacts and advice for people worried about that. So as I say, maybe something difficult for some of you to listen to. But come enjoy break, and there'll also be plenty of us to come and speak to if you've got any questions or queries. Thank you.